Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about the whole conversation of the Joker sequel. Obviously, that's been something that's been a big conversation lately, even before now. But obviously, there's been like conflicting reports saying like, oh, the sequel is kind of like, yeah, it's kind of, there's deals being made about it right now. Then you had other outlets saying like, that's not happening at all. Even Todd Phillips being like, there had been no discussions about a sequel on official terms, because obviously like there's been talks from like Todd Phillips as well as Joaquin Phoenix about their interest in doing a sequel. So, and obviously there's a whole conversation of like Joker has officially gone over $1 billion at this point in time, so it's a super successful movie. So obviously that's going to get everybody talking, including Warner Brothers, about okay, so what do we go from here? And obviously at the end of the day, like obviously the focus of this video is obviously the conversation of, well, what could we potentially see for a sequel, and would anyone want one? Well, obviously let's go down the route of, would anyone want one? And that's really interesting when you look at different people's perspectives on this, because some people would be totally fine for having a sequel, other people wouldn't. And I think that's kind of an interesting conversation, because obviously this movie was sold to a lot of people as like, this is supposed to be a one-off, it's just a, you know, it's just a one-off Joker thing. But then it's like, because the movie, you know, despite any controversies around that, I feel like a majority of people like this movie, you know, so it's very successful. So obviously, you know, sequels are kind of in the works of like, wow, because no one expected this movie to be the juggernaut that it ended up being. So that has led to the conversation. I think it's kind of, you know, because obviously I've had the conversation in a different video where me and many other people have talked about what this potentially could mean for a lot of other DC movies going forward. Obviously I've focused on villains, but I guess the same thing could apply to heroes, but I feel like it'd probably be more so villains, so you can tell like these very darker stories, and you know, maybe that fit more rather than kind of what like Zack Snyder was doing with the movies, like I said, because with the heroes it didn't seem like people are all for that darker tone and everything, you know, what, to each their own. Once again, I've liked everything that's been in the quote-unquote DCEU, but I know I'm not in the majority. I know I'm in the minority in that regard, but regardless, because for a lot of people the movie ends in such a way that it's just so capsulated in its own that it's like, just leave it as its own. You can do other things, you don't even have to touch it. But other people have brought up the want of a sequel. I would think that'd be interesting, because it's not something I really even thought of. It's kind of spoilerish, but like, Joker can be seen, interpreted many different ways, that movie, just because of the themes and just the certain aspects of the movie. It's kind of like, that's open up to your own interpretation. So that's why I'm like, certain aspects of it, it's like, could you really lead into a sequel? Because you'd have to basically give Joker, you'd have to make everything that's kind of ambiguous, at least things that could be read as ambiguous, you'd have to basically define it. So I'm wondering, would you even want to do something like that, you know? So that's the question. Because another thing for a lot of people too, it's like, well, obviously the entire movie was about Arthur becoming the Joker. Part 2, you get full Joker all the way through, and what that would necessarily mean is obviously, you know, some of the thoughts people have had going forward with the whole conversation of, you know, what they would want in a Joker sequel. And obviously these are some ideas that, you know, I've also shared and thought about. Obviously some people, you know, because even like I said, Todd Phillips himself had said like, oh, who's to say that Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is the actual Joker? So the whole conversation I've had before in a different video where it's like, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker inspires the next Joker. And that also depends on, and so far it seems like they have no intentions of ever folding it into the continuity, because obviously Matt Reeves doing his own thing, so this Joker and Matt Reeves' Batman probably will never cross over, but people wanted to cross over because they want to see those two worlds collide. So, which even I want to, because obviously with what they've done with Joker, which, you know, I mean, I guess depending on how you felt about a movie, if you didn't like the movie, you probably would be like, oh, let's go a different route. But if you like the movie, I'm sure that's even more so a reason why you want to see those clash. I think it'd be really interesting, especially if they did go down the route of like, this Arthur isn't the Joker, he inspires the Joker. I would really think that'd be an interesting route to go down for a sequel, because I mean, it'd be really interesting to kind of, because we never got a full scope of what was the aftermath of Gotham. We saw Gotham kind of in chaos. I'm kind of going into spoilers. Do note, I'm going into spoilers, so if you haven't seen Joker, do not continue watching this. But like, obviously the Waynes are dead. And obviously that sets up Bruce to become Batman, but that depends on what would you do with the sequel? Would it be a direct sequel to see like, oh, what has happened to Gotham? Or would you go later down the road and make, because I think even Todd Phillips, some stuff I was hearing saying that Todd Phillips said like, if he did a sequel, there wouldn't be any Batman stuff. Like, I mean, it'd probably be references to Batman, but he wouldn't introduce Batman. Some people have thrown out some thoughts that I thought was kind of interesting of how like you can make it so that Batman's kind of this mysterious figure in the background, some people are saying, because like you could set it up so that Joker kind of comes out, like Arthur kind of gets out of Arkham and it's like, oh, I've been hearing rumors about this Batman. Or rather, you never see him, but he's kind of like this shadowy monster that you never get to see, which, you know, I think would be an interesting element to. Or even kind of along those lines of making it so that like Arthur kind of gets upset because he sees how all like the Joker gang, all these different people taking, like, he's like, no, I'm Joker, you guys are imposters. I mean, that could even lend itself to what I was thinking, like maybe some person gets inspired by the Joker and starts considering himself the Joker, and Arthur's like, no, that's me. Don't steal my spotlight. I worked so hard for my spotlight. I've had so many people kind of take so much from me. So much of my life has been a lie. This is what I feel defines me, and how dare you take this away from me? This is me, my essence. And you can even be this whole thing of like, you know, him dealing with someone who's an imposter, and, you know, there'll be interesting routes you could go down if that's the lane you want it to, you know, go down. Because I would be so interested to see what you could do with that continuity where it's like, oh, Joker is potentially Batman's half brother, because I didn't think of it at the time, you know, while watching the movie, because I was like, oh, you know, it's all in her head. But obviously there's evidence to be like, oh no, there's evidence to be like, maybe his mom wasn't as crazy, maybe there was some truth to it. The whole thing is, and it was something that people pointed out, and I never really thought of that, because Arthur is an unreliable perspective to have in the movie. The entire movie's told from his perspective, so he's a very skewed. You can't really trust his storytelling, you know, because it's like, was that all real? Was that skewed? Was it partially the truth? Was it all made up? That type of thing. At the end of the day, would I want a sequel? I mean, I think it'd be interesting to see what they would do. Like, obviously all those, you know, things that I've thrown out there and other people have thrown out there, I think would be lend itself very interestingly to a sequel. I am curious what they're going to do about the whole, like, because Arthur isn't like some gangster mastermind, not unless he grows into that, but I don't see that. So that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards someone else gets inspired by him and becomes the Joker that we know. And I feel like, because I personally have said it before, I want it all to connect. I know people don't like that. They're kind of fine. They're like, let this just stay like an Elseworlds thing. If you want to, you can do like an anthology of, you know, Elseworlds stuff, kind of similar to Joker. But I personally want it all to connect, because it's like I said, just what they did with Joker was so interesting, and, you know, the potential route they could go down with a sequel and what that potentially could mean for a crossover with Matt Reeves' Batman would be pretty dope. But, you know, that might be asking for too much. And like I said, nothing's official, at least at the time of me recording this. Obviously, a lot of talks have been happening, but, you know, and even if they do make a sequel, who's to say it will connect? They might go like, it's a sequel, but it is this little pocket of the DCEU, some Elseworld stuff we can fiddle around with. Like I've said multiple times, DC's got continuity all over the place. People might have issues with that. I kind of don't. I'm okay with everything having its own little pocket of continuity, where it be the Arrowverse, the stuff on DC Universe, everything in the movies, you know, like, it's okay for everything to kind of be its own thing, which obviously that's the issue people have with potentially making a sequel or ever connecting this, because it's like, I like it because it's its own thing. But I don't know, it's a very interesting, once again, situation. So I'm curious to see ultimately what Warner Brothers / DC plan to do going forward with all of this. Obviously, like I said, I've shared my thoughts about this. I love to know yours in the comments down below. First of all, would you yourself want to see a Joker sequel? Also, let me know whether you like the movie or not. If you didn't like the movie, that's totally fine. You know, everything's not going to be for everyone. So I'd like to know your thoughts about the movie. Also, would you want a sequel? And if you did, what would you want that sequel to be like? Would you want it to connect with the DCEU's continuity, in particular connect to Matt Reeves' Batman in some shape or form? Once again, that also is all dependent on what the time frame is in that movie, and ultimately what the story ends up being, you know. So there's a lot of factors to be considered, but like I said, I'd love to get to know your thoughts. Really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good